Today is our wedding anniversary. Mark's truck isn't in the driveway. A foreclosure notice is plastered to the front door. I pull out my phone, open the bank app, and check our joint checking account. The screen shows that the $80,000 in savings is completely gone, replaced by a giant zero. Ever since we bought this house in Ohio, Mark has been handling the money. Last month, he told me himself that the mortgage was fully paid off. I push open the front door. The house is empty. The leather sofa in the living room, the TV on the wall, the wooden dining table, all gone. Only my golden retriever, Buster, sits obediently on the bare hardwood floor, wagging his tail. I walk over and pat Buster on the head. He's safe, just a little hungry. I call Mark. The automated voice on the other end says the number is no longer in service. I stand in the middle of the empty living room. I don't scream, and I don't throw my phone. I take a deep breath, raise my phone, and open the front-facing camera. I mess up my hair with both hands and rub my eyes hard until they're red. I press record. "Hi everyone, I'm Sarah," I say into the camera, my voice trembling with a clear sob. "Neighbors in Columbus, Ohio, please help me. My husband Mark disappeared today. He took all our furniture and emptied our savings. He's sick, very sick." I hold up the phone, panning the camera over the bare floor, the foreclosure notice stuck to the door, and finally Buster wagging his tail beside me. Mark's mental state has been extremely bad lately. He stays up all night, talking to the walls. He's been convinced someone is trying to take our house. Now he's really taken everything. He has severe paranoia. I'm terrified he might be in danger out there. I stop recording. I open Facebook and join a dozen local community help groups, buy and sell groups, and national missing person pages. I post the video in every group. The title is long. Urgent. My husband with severe mental illness is missing. Took all our belongings. His life is in danger. Please help me find him. Within a minute of posting, a dozen comments pop up. Someone asks what Mark was wearing. Someone asks what car he drives. I sit on the floor, leaning against Buster's furry body, and reply to every comment as fast as I can. I post the license plate of Mark's black Ford pickup in every reply. I even post a photo of Mark from 3 months ago with bold text across it. "Extremely dangerous. Maybe experiencing severe hallucinations. Do not provoke him. Contact me immediately." The group notification sounds go crazy. Ding, ding, ding. The light from my phone screen illuminates my face. A user named Kind Aunt Susan comments, "Oh my God, honey, you're so pitiful. I've already forwarded this video to 500 of my friends. My husband works at a gas station. I'll have him keep an eye out for that Ford pickup." The admin of a trucker group also comments, "Brothers on the National Highway Network have all received the plate number. If this guy is on the road, there's no way he'll slip past us." I stand up, walk to the door of my next-door neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, and ring the bell. Mrs. Henderson is a retired nurse in her 70s. The door opens. I pretend to be unsteady, leaning against the doorframe. "Sarah? Oh my God, what happened?" She stares at my red eyes in shock. "Mrs. Henderson, Mark is gone. He emptied the house. He's sick, very sick." I hold up my phone screen to show her the video. Mrs. Henderson immediately pulls me inside and pours me a cup of hot tea. She even brings out a can of premium dog food for me to take home to Buster. "I'll send this to my church group right now," she says, putting on her reading glasses and tapping on her phone with trembling fingers. "Our church has thousands of members. Everyone will help you look. That poor boy, a mental breakdown is terrifying." I hold the hot tea cup, lower my head, and thank her repeatedly. The steam from the cup rises, hiding my face. Back in my empty house, Buster happily eats the dog food. I sit on the floor, pull a red pen and a scrap of paper from my bag, and write down the names of a few large psychiatric hospitals nearby. I pick up my phone and dial the first hospital's information line. "Hello, I'd like to inquire about the process for involuntary hospitalization." "Yes, my husband. He has severe delusional disorder and is currently missing." "Okay, I'll prepare his medical records. Once I find him, I'll bring him in immediately." After hanging up the phone, I turned on my computer. I logged into Mark's personal cloud backup. The password was his high school sweetheart's birthday. He never changed it. In the cloud were several PDF files he had searched for just last week. Luxury apartment rental guide for Florida's Sun Coast. I took screenshots of these PDFs, added a forged counseling appointment slip of my own, and uploaded the package to the most viewed missing person post online. I added a caption. Neighbors, I just found on his computer that Mark's delusions seem to have convinced him he's going on vacation to Florida. He took all the money from the house, and I'm afraid he might be scammed or harm himself on the way. If anyone spots him on the road toward Florida, please keep an eye out. Night fell. The house was dark. I turned on my phone's flashlight, illuminating the empty space. The video's view count had surpassed 500,000. A local news station in Columbus even direct messaged me on Twitter, wanting to feature this heartbreaking missing person story on tomorrow morning's news. I replied to the reporter, "Yes, thank you so much. I just want my husband to come home safely for treatment. He's very ill, and he needs me." I put down my phone and stroked Buster's back. Tomorrow morning, Mark's photo would appear on millions of TV screens and phones across the country. His meticulously planned new life as a single wealthy man would be completely crushed before it even began. If he dared to use a bank card with his name on it, if he dared to park that pickup truck in any public lot, countless well-meaning eyes would be watching him closely. He wanted to disappear, but I was determined to make the whole world know him. 7 a.m. I sat on the bare hardwood floor. Sunlight streamed into the empty living room. Buster lay at my feet, chewing on a rubber toy. I held a cup of black coffee borrowed from our neighbor, Mrs. Henderson. My phone screen was lit, connected to a charger. A Twitch outdoor channel was live streaming. The streamer, Bearded Jack, specialized in cross-country travel vlogs from his RV. The top left of the screen showed 130,000 viewers. The footage showed a gas station in Georgia. Jack was holding a can of energy drink and talking to the camera. "Guys, this drink tastes absolutely terrible," Jack grimaced. The chat in the bottom right corner was scrolling frantically. Suddenly, several bold red messages flooded the screen. "Jack, look behind you. Black Ford pickup. License plate OH 772. That's the crazy guy from Columbus. Get him. He has severe delusions." Jack turned around. The camera shook as he moved. A black Ford pickup was parked at pump number 9. The license plate was clearly visible. I set my coffee cup on the floor and zoomed in on my phone screen with my fingers. Mark pushed open the convenience store's glass door and walked out. He was wearing a brand new blue Hawaiian shirt and designer sunglasses. He carried 2 iced coffees, a relaxed smile on his face. The passenger door opened. A young woman stepped out. She wore tight jeans and a white tank top, her hair blonde. She leaned against the car door, took the iced coffee from Mark, and kissed his cheek. The chat exploded instantly. "Oh my God, that crazy guy kidnapped a woman. Call the local police now." Jack, holding his selfie stick, strode toward Mark. He shoved the phone camera right into Mark's face. "Hey, buddy, you're Mark, right?" Jack shouted loudly. "Have you taken your meds? Your wife Sarah is looking everywhere for you. You're really sick." Mark was startled. He stepped back, spilling the iced coffee all over the ground. Brown liquid splattered on his Hawaiian shirt. "What are you doing? Get that damn camera away." Mark frowned, reaching out to push Jack's selfie stick. "Everyone look. He's becoming aggressive." Jack yelled into the camera, nimbly jumping back a step. "Buddy, calm down. We all know you have mental issues. You emptied your house. You took all the money. You think someone's out to get you, right?" Mark froze. He took off his sunglasses, his eyes wide. He glanced at the blonde woman, then back at Jack. "What are you talking about? I'm not sick at all." "Get away from me," Mark shouted loudly, waving his hands wildly in the air. The blonde woman stepped back. The iced coffee in her hand fell to the ground. She stared at Mark with a look of sheer terror. "Mark, what? What's wrong with you? Why are they saying you have a mental illness?" The woman's voice trembled. "Baby, don't listen to his nonsense. I don't know this person." Mark turned and grabbed the woman's hand. The woman screamed, forcefully shook off Mark's hand. and ran toward the highway. She didn't even close the car door. "Baby, come back," Mark yelled. He tried to chase after her. Jack immediately rushed forward, blocking Mark's path. Two other truck drivers from the gas station ran over and pinned Mark down by the shoulders. "Don't move, you maniac." A burly, bearded man pressed Mark against the hood of the pickup truck. "You're not hurting that innocent girl." Mark struggled desperately. His face was pressed against the scorching hot hood, his features completely contorted. "Let me go. I'm not sick. I just got $80,000 and I'm heading to Florida to buy a house. I threw out all the old furniture at home. My wife is an idiot. I left her. You idiots, let me go." The louder he shouted, the harder they held him down. "Listen to what he's saying." Jack zoomed in the camera, focusing on Mark's twisted face. He's completely lost in his own delusions. He doesn't even know who he is anymore. The screen was flooded with dense comments. "This is terrifying. His delusions are in the late stages. Call an ambulance. Restrain him." I watched the screen. Mark's face was flushed red. He opened his mouth wide, drool dripping from the corner of his lips onto the hood. In front of hundreds of thousands of viewers, he had just shouted out the truth, that he was heading to Florida with $80,000. But no one believed him. In everyone's eyes, it was just the ramblings of a mentally ill person having an episode. The live stream continued. Two police cars with flashing lights pulled into the gas station. Four officers drew their tasers and slowly approached Mark. The police shouted for the truck drivers holding Mark to step aside. Just as Mark tried to lift his head, an officer pushed his face back against the hood and swiftly handcuffed him. "Officer, I'm not crazy. I have money. It's in my car." Mark screamed hoarsely. An officer patted Mark on the back. "All right, sir. We know you have money. We'll take you to a very safe place. There are doctors there to help you." The police shoved the struggling Mark into the back seat of the patrol car. Sirens blared as the car drove out of the gas station. I took a screenshot of Mark pinned against the hood. I saved the recorded video. I posted the video in the missing persons support group. I typed a new message. "Thank you, everyone. I saw the live stream. He's really very ill. He even scared off a girl he just met. He's still delusional about having $80,000. In reality, our accounts have long been overdrawn by him. Please don't worry. I've contacted mental health services in Georgia. I'll go pick him up and bring him home as soon as possible." Messages in the group scrolled rapidly. Everyone comforted me and praised my strength. I stroked Buster's chin. Buster purred contentedly. My phone vibrated. It was a text from an unknown number. I opened the message. It contained only one sentence. "Sarah, it's Chloe. I ran off at the gas station earlier. There's a black suitcase in Mark's trunk. It's full of $100 bills." I stopped petting Buster. Chloe. That name sounded so familiar. Yesterday, while going through old bills, I found that Mark had bought an expensive diamond necklace with the recipient listed as Chloe. I always thought Chloe was only after his money. But now, this woman named Chloe had reached out to me, directly revealing where Mark had hidden the money. I picked up the black coffee from the floor and took a big sip. The cold bitterness flowed down my throat. Mark had undoubtedly deceived many people. He must have spun some elaborate lie for this blonde woman too. Now, the live stream fiasco had completely torn off his mask. This woman was scared, and she decided to hand Mark's trump card directly to me. I put down the coffee cup and replied to the number. "What do you want?" The screen immediately showed that the other person was typing. 2 seconds later, a new text popped up. "I want half the money from his trunk. If you call the police, the money will be seized as evidence. Let's work together and split the $80,000. I stared at the words on my phone screen, tapping my fingers against the floor. Chloe thought there was $80,000 in the suitcase. I reopened my laptop and logged into Mark's cloud backup. I clicked on one of his credit card statements. I hadn't looked closely yesterday. Today, I zoomed in on the details. A line of fine print was clearly printed there, a $40,000 cash withdrawal at a Las Vegas casino. There was never $80,000 in Mark's black suitcase. He'd already gambled away half. I picked up my phone and replied to Chloe. "Deal." Tell me where the car keys are. I shut down the computer. Standing up, I walked to the closet and pulled out a simple gray trench coat, putting it on. I clipped Buster's leash onto his collar. Buster wagged his tail excitedly, thinking we were going for a walk in the park. I walked to the front door, reached out, and tore off the foreclosure notice stubbornly stuck to the wood. I folded it in half and stuffed it into my pocket. Since the police car had taken Mark, the black Ford pickup must still be parked in the gas station lot. Chloe would definitely know where the spare key was. The police thought he was mentally ill. At most, they'd take him to the hospital for evaluation. The hospital would contact me, his legal wife. Before the doctors concluded he was perfectly sane, I had at least 48 hours. 48 hours was enough for me to drive a rented car to Georgia and take that black suitcase. My phone vibrated again. Chloe sent a photo. The picture showed the sink in a gas station public restroom. Taped to the pipe connection under the sink with black electrical tape was a spare car key. He's used to hiding spare keys under the car chassis. I pried it off and took it when the police were arresting him. The key is now behind the pipe in the second stall of the women's restroom at gas station number 9. Transfer me $40,000 once you get the money. I'll be watching you. Reading the text, the corner of my mouth twitched slightly. I would get the money. As for splitting it with her, I took the car keys, led Buster out the door. The sunlight outside was a bit harsh. I started the beat-up second-hand Honda parked on the lawn. The engine let out a hoarse roar. Mark had emptied the house, thinking it would completely sever my life. But he could never have imagined that the blonde girl he was so happily running away with would turn into an accomplice, selling him out the moment she saw him pinned against the hood, drooling. I shifted into gear and pressed the accelerator. The car pulled out of the driveway. I parked the beat-up second-hand Honda behind gas station number 9 in Georgia. It was a perfect blind spot, out of the security camera's view. I pushed open the car door and led Buster out. I tied him to a rusty pipe nearby and poured half a bottle of water for him. I pushed open the door to the women's restroom. Inside, the air was thick with cheap air freshener and the sharp smell of disinfectant. I walked to the second stall. Squatting down, I reached toward the pipe connection under the sink. My fingers touched a rough piece of electrical tape. I yanked it hard. A spare car key with a slightly rough metal edge fell into my palm. Clutching the key, I walked out of the restroom. The black Ford pickup was still parked next to pump number 9. A ring of yellow caution tape surrounded it. The police had left it here, waiting for family or a tow truck to deal with it. I bent down, ducked under the caution tape, and walked to the rear of the pickup. I inserted the spare key into the lock and turned it hard to the right. Asterisk click. Asterisk the metal tailgate popped open. In the corner of the cargo bed lay a black leather suitcase. The case had no lock. I simply pulled open the heavy brass zipper. Inside, neatly stacked, were 4 bundles of green bills, all $100 denominations. This was the capital Mark had originally planned to use to start his new life. I zipped it shut and lifted the suitcase. It was heavy, making my arm ache slightly. I walked quickly back to the Honda and shoved the case into the back seat. I started the engine and drove 3 blocks. I parked in front of a local community bank. Carrying the suitcase, I walked in. I dumped all $40,000 onto the counter and asked to deposit it into the new personal account I'd opened just yesterday. The bill counter whirred frantically. 30 seconds later, the teller handed me a deposit slip printed with black numbers. I folded it in half and slipped it into my trench coat pocket. I drove back to the gas station. I still had one more thing to do. I walked over to the Ford pickup, opened the driver's side door, and climbed in. I wanted to search through the glove compartment to see if Mark had left any other documents. Bang, bang, bang. Someone was pounding hard on the driver's side window. I turned my head. 2 extremely tall men were standing outside the door. The man on the left had a shaved head, wore an ill-fitting, cheap black suit, and had a dark red knife scar on his neck. The man on the right wore sunglasses and had his arms crossed over his chest. They completely blocked my way out of the car. I took a deep breath and pressed the window control button. The glass rolled down halfway. "Where's Mark?" The bald man stared at me intently, his voice rough and hoarse. He owes $80,000 in high-interest loans to a Las Vegas casino. The payment was due yesterday, the man in sunglasses on the right added, reaching out to pull the door handle. I had locked the door from the inside. I looked at them. I took out my phone and opened the video of Mark being pinned against the hood of a car by 2 police officers. He was taken away by the police. To the state psychiatric hospital, I said, turning the phone screen toward them and pressing it against the glass. After watching the video, the bald man frowned deeply. He reached out and gripped the edge of the window. We want the money. A father's debt is repaid by his son, a husband's debt by his wife. You need to cover his debt. The bald man's voice carried a clear threat. I pointed to the empty passenger seat. He threw out all the furniture in the house. The house has already been foreclosed by the court. He emptied all our joint accounts too, I said in an extremely calm, unemotional tone. You saw the video. He's completely lost it. I don't have a single cent on me. The 2 men exchanged a glance. The bald man's hand left the window edge. I reached out with my right hand and opened the pickup's passenger side storage compartment. I pulled out a blue hardcover folder. Yesterday, while checking his cloud backups at home, I had seen a scanned copy of this document. I slid the folder through the gap in the window to the bald man. Mark has a hidden account in Ohio. It's a complete shell company used for money laundering, I said, looking the bald man in the eye. The folder has the account number, password, and the online banking security key. There's $100,000 in it. You know how to get the money out, right? The bald man quickly flipped open the folder. He took out his phone and snapped a clear photo of the account number and password. You're a clever woman, he said, tossing the folder back into the car before turning and walking toward a black Cadillac parked across the street. I watched as the Cadillac sped away. I placed the blue folder back into the storage compartment. The scene shifts to the state psychiatric hospital 100 miles away. In the narrow evaluation room, the air conditioning was cranked up high. Mark sat on a white plastic chair, wearing a gray hospital gown. Across from him sat a bespectacled psychologist. Doctor, I'm completely normal, Mark said, placing his hands flat on his knees and forcing a sincere smile. I was yelling at the gas station earlier only because that damn live streamer pissed me off. Mark took a deep breath. I really do have money. I just withdrew it from the bank. It's in the trunk of my truck. The doctor wrote a few lines in the notebook in his hand. Mark, your wife Sarah told me that your house was foreclosed by the court today. The doctor looked up. There isn't even a dining table left in the house. She also said you've been talking to the walls a lot lately. Mark clenched his teeth. He gripped the fabric of his hospital gown tightly. That vicious woman is lying. The foreclosure was part of my plan. I'm going to dump her. Mark suddenly stood up and shouted. I still have an account in Ohio. There's $100,000 in it. Go check it. 2 strong male orderlies immediately rushed in from outside the door. They pinned Mark down by the shoulders, one on each side, forcing him back into the plastic chair. Calm down, Mark. The doctor pressed a red call button on the table. Your delusional symptoms are extremely severe right now. We'll give you an injection of haloperidol. I'm completely lucid. Let me make a phone call. Mark struggled desperately, kicking his feet wildly on the floor. Just one call, and I can transfer that $100,000 to prove it to you. An orderly brought in a corded landline phone from the hallway and placed it on the table. The doctor nodded, indicating that Mark could make the call. Mark grabbed the plastic receiver. With trembling fingers, he dialed the automated inquiry hotline for the hidden account. He entered the account number. He entered the password. A cold, electronic female voice came through the speaker. Hello. The balance of the account you inquired about is $0.00. The last interstate transfer of $100,000 occurred 15 minutes ago. The receiver slipped from Mark's hand, hitting the cement floor with a sharp, dull thud. Mark sat motionless in his chair, his eyes bloodshot and fixed on the telephone receiver lying on the ground. 0? How could it become 0? He muttered to himself, his fingers unconsciously clawing at the air. The doctor sighed and signed his name on the last page of the medical record. The patient exhibits severe auditory hallucinations and delusions of wealth. Mandatory confinement for 48 hours. The doctor handed the form to the orderly. I sat in that beat-up Honda. My phone screen lit up. A notification from the local bank popped up. Your personal account has been successfully credited with $40,000. 00 in cash. I stepped on the gas. The car pulled out of the gas station and merged back into the flow of traffic on the highway. Buster stuck his head out the window, happily letting his tongue flap in the wind. I reached out and patted his furry head. I drove the Honda along Interstate 75. Sunlight streamed through the window, shining on Buster's back as he slept quietly in the passenger seat. A black Cadillac appeared in the rearview mirror. It was following dangerously close, almost bumping my rear bumper. I accelerated, trying to change lanes. The Cadillac changed lanes with me. Ahead, the huge neon sign of a motel appeared. I signaled and drove into the motel's open parking lot. The Cadillac followed closely, pulling in and parking directly in front of my car, blocking my way. The doors opened. The bald man with the scar on his neck stepped out. The man in sunglasses got out from the other side, his hands tucked into the pockets of his black suit. They walked straight to my car window. I rolled down the window, my fingers tightening around the steering wheel. You already got the $100,000, I said, looking into the bald man's eyes. The bald man smirked. Our contact at the bank just sent me a message. You deposited $40,000 in cash 20 minutes ago. He placed his large hand on the car door. Hand over the bank card you just used to deposit that money and write down the password. With interest, Mark owes us $120,000. $100,000 isn't even enough to cover the interest. I had underestimated their greed. Handing over the hidden account had only led them straight to the cash in my possession. I slowly loosened my grip on the steering wheel and glanced over at Buster, still asleep. That $40,000 is already frozen. Large cash deposits in newly opened accounts require a 48-hour source of funds review, I said, looking at the bald man. If you take the card now, you won't be able to withdraw a single cent. The bald man's smile vanished. He slapped the roof of the car hard. You think you can mess with me? He growled, lowering his voice. I'll give you a better option, I said, reaching over to open the glove compartment and pulling out a silver brass long-handled key. Mark rented a climate-controlled private storage unit in the southern suburbs of Columbus, Ohio. I dangled the key in front of him. He's an extremely cautious person. This key opens gate number 2. Inside, there's a safe containing 5 gold bars and 6 Rolex watches he collected. Their combined value is definitely over $100,000. The man in sunglasses leaned in closer, staring at the key in my hand. I'll take you to get it, I said, tossing the key onto the dashboard. Once you have the items, let me and my dog go. The bald man stared into my eyes for a full 10 seconds. You drive ahead and lead the way. We'll follow. Don't try anything funny, he said, pointing at the Cadillac. If you dare call the police or deviate from the route, I'll ram your car off the road. They turned and walked back to the Cadillac. I restarted the Honda. The tires screeched against the gravel as the car pulled back onto the interstate. The Cadillac clung to my tail like a ghost. The scene shifts back to the Georgia State Psychiatric Hospital. Mark, dressed neatly, stood at the door of the evaluation room. He was wearing his coffee-stained Hawaiian shirt. He had succeeded. Over the past dozen or so hours, he had fully complied with all the doctor's instructions, taken his pills on time, and answered every question in an extremely calm tone. He had even voluntarily admitted to having minor delusions due to bankruptcy and requested to be discharged to go home and look for work. The doctor stamped his discharge papers. Mark walked out through the psychiatric hospital's automatic glass doors. He patted his pockets. Inside were only a few coins and a dead phone. The pickup truck had already been towed by the police, and that $40,000 in cash was surely gone. But there was no trace of panic on his face. He bit his lower lip hard and strode toward the long-distance bus station by the highway. He used his last few coins to buy a ticket for the overnight bus to Columbus, Ohio. He huddled in the corner of the last row of the bus. Next to him sat a snoring, heavy-set man. Mark closed his eyes, and the climate-controlled warehouse in the southern suburbs appeared in his mind. He had quietly moved all the valuable furniture, appliances, and even several expensive paintings from his home to that warehouse. Besides that, the safe inside held the physical gold and luxury watches he had accumulated over 5 years. That was his final safety net. As long as he could get back to that warehouse, he could reclaim what was his. He would sell the gold, assume a completely new identity, and disappear for good. The bus raced through the night, heading north all the way. As the sun rose, my Honda came to a stop outside the gate of the Safe Harbor Self-Storage Center in the southern suburbs of Columbus. The morning mist hadn't yet lifted. The place was extremely remote, surrounded by abandoned industrial buildings. I parked the car by the roadside. The Cadillac was parked to my left. The bald man and the man in sunglasses got out of their car. Gate number 2. The code is 0426. Then use this key to unlock it. I handed the silver brass key to the bald man. 0426. That was the birthday of the woman named Chloe. The bald man took the key and glanced at the rusty chain-link gate. You get out. Come in with us, the man in sunglasses said, pointing at me. I shook my head. My dog is in the car. He needs me. You go in and get it yourselves. I'll wait here. The bald man snorted coldly and pocketed the key. He exchanged a look with the man in sunglasses. Both of them strode toward gate number 2 of the storage center. I sat in the car, watching them punch the numbers into the keypad. A green light flashed. The bald man used the key to twist open the heavy padlock. They pushed the iron gate open and went inside. I immediately shifted into reverse, stepped on the gas, and quickly backed out of the parking spot, sharply turning the car around. I drove to a spot behind an abandoned gas station about 200 meters away. From here, I had a clear view of the storage center's gate, but my car was completely hidden from sight. I turned off the engine and pulled out the key. I kept my eyes fixed on the gate. A gray long-distance bus slowly pulled to a stop on the road opposite the storage center. Mark jumped out from the bus door. His face was covered in stubble, and his clothes were rumpled. He glanced around, confirming there were no police nearby, then quickly jogged across the road, heading straight for gate number 2. The gate was half open. The padlock lay on the ground. Mark paused, then picked up his pace and rushed inside. Sitting in the car, I rolled down the window and lit a menthol cigarette. I don't actually smoke. It's just a little trick I use to mask my nerves. Inside the warehouse, Mark rushed to his climate-controlled storage unit. The roll-up door was halfway open. He bent down and ducked inside. The bald man was wielding a crowbar, forcefully striking the large metal safe. The man in sunglasses was rummaging through the leather sofas and expensive paintings nearby. What are you doing? Mark shouted, his eyes wide. He charged forward and shoved the man in sunglasses aside. This is my stuff. Get out. The bald man stopped what he was doing. He turned around, sizing up Mark. So you're Mark, the bald man said, lifting the crowbar and weighing it in his hand. The debt from Las Vegas, $120,000. Your wife said the gold bars and watches here are just enough to cover it. Mark froze completely. He looked at the scar on the bald man's neck, then at the partially pried open safe. My wife? Sarah? Mark's voice began to tremble. She told you about this place? She doesn't even know there's gold here. She even handed over the key, the man in sunglasses said, stepping forward and grabbing Mark by the collar, slamming him hard against the wall. Give us the safe combination. Now. Mark's back hit the metal wall with a dull thud. He slid to the floor, burying his head in his hands. I sat in my Honda 200 meters away. From the warehouse came the sound of something heavy hitting the floor, followed by Mark's faint cries. Buster rested his head on my knee. I reached out and stroked his ear. I had no idea what the safe combination was. That brass key, I had taken it from the front door of our house. All I knew was that he had rented this warehouse behind my back and moved our furniture there. Now, two of the greediest forces had met inside a sealed metal box. I crushed the half-burned menthol cigarette in the ashtray. I rolled down the Honda's window completely. Cold wind rushed through the gap into the car. Buster nudged my palm with his warm nose. I reached out and patted his furry head, leaving him in the passenger seat. I opened the car door, stepped out, and gently closed it behind me. I bent down, skirted around the abandoned red brick wall, and walked step by step toward the rusted wire fence of the storage center. I crouched behind a thick tree trunk. The view here was wide open. The large iron door of warehouse number 2 was wide open. From inside came the loud thuds of heavy objects hitting the metal walls. Bang! Bang! Asterisk mixed in was the grating sound of an iron crowbar scraping against the concrete floor. Mark's voice, strained and distorted, echoed from deep inside the warehouse. He was shouting, "That's the code. I'm not lying to you. Let go of my arm." I peered through a large tear in the wire fence. The incandescent bulb hanging from the warehouse ceiling was on, swinging back and forth. The bald man released his grip on Mark's collar. Mark collapsed onto the floor, gasping for air. With a trembling right hand, he punched a series of numbers into the huge gray metal safe. Asterisk click. Asterisk the heavy iron door of the safe swung outward. Mark reached both hands into the safe and shakily pulled out a heavy wooden box. He placed it gently on the ground and lifted the lid. 5 gleaming rectangular gold bars lay on a red velvet cushion. Under the incandescent light, their surfaces shone brightly. The bald man took a step forward. He crouched down, picked up the top gold bar, and weighed it in both hands. Suddenly, his eyes narrowed, and his brow furrowed tightly. He pulled a sharp Swiss Army knife from his black suit pocket. Flipping out the blade, he scraped it hard against the side of a gold bar. Asterisk screech. Asterisk a thin layer of yellow paint peeled off, revealing a dull grayish-white metallic base. It was nothing but cheap lead. The bald man's face instantly darkened. He stood up and hurled the heavy lead block hard against Mark's chest. Mark let out a muffled groan and fell backward onto the hardwood floor. "You're trying to fool me with lead?" The bald man lifted his foot and kicked over the wooden box. The remaining 4 gold bars scattered, thudding heavily onto the concrete floor. One hit the iron doorframe and snapped in 2, revealing large patches of gray lead inside. Mark scrambled over, grabbing the broken metal piece. He frantically clawed at the yellow coating with his fingernails. His nails split, oozing red blood that smeared onto the gray lead, leaving dark crimson streaks. Impossible. They were real. I paid a fortune for these. That damn underground dealer cheated me. He took all my savings. Mark screamed hysterically. Tears and sweat streamed into his mouth. He slammed his forehead against the nearby metal wall panel, making a loud thud, thud, thud. The man in sunglasses walked over and stomped his heavy leather shoe down on Mark's bloodied fingers. "Your money's long gone. This pile of gray trash isn't even worth $100. The bald man took out his phone and dialed a number. He barked into the receiver. "Get a big truck over here. South Suburbs Safe Harbor Storage Center. There's a lot of valuable high-end furniture here. And a few expensive paintings. Come and load it up immediately. Take everything to settle the debt." Hearing this, Mark scrambled to his feet. He spread his arms and clung desperately to the nearby massive black leather sofa. The sofa was huge, the one that used to sit squarely in the center of our living room. "Don't take my furniture. It's mine. I need this stuff to make a comeback. You can't take it," Mark yelled, wrapping his legs tightly around the sofa's wooden base. The man in sunglasses stepped forward, bent down, grabbed the collar of Mark's Hawaiian shirt, and yanked hard, tearing him bodily off the sofa. Mark crashed to the floor, 3 buttons from his shirt popping off and skittering away across the concrete. Half an hour later, a massive yellow box truck slowly drove through the storage center's gate. The beeping sound of it reversing echoed through the empty compound. Asterisk beep. 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 Asterisk 2 burly workers in blue overalls got out. They unhooked the chains at the back of the truck, grabbed thick moving straps, and walked into warehouse number 2, starting to load the truck. I stood behind the large tree, watching them carry out the solid wood dining table I had spent 3 months choosing. Next came the oversized LCD television. Finally, the massive black leather sofa. These pieces of furniture were covered in dust under the morning sun. The workers handled them roughly, cramming them one by one into the narrow cargo compartment of the truck, securing them tightly to the iron frame with coarse hemp rope. Mark sat alone on the empty warehouse floor. His hands were planted on the ground. His Hawaiian shirt was creased with deep folds, stained with black engine oil and dirt from the floor. He stared blankly at the hollowed-out interior of the warehouse. The scene felt all too familiar. Yesterday at noon, when I returned home, I was met with the same emptiness. Now, the warehouse he had secretly rented was completely empty too. Not a single extra item remained. A bald man walked up to Mark, bent down, and slapped his cheek hard. The furniture and those paintings can only cover $20,000 at most. You still owe us a full $100,000. The bald man spat on the ground. If we don't see the money by next Monday, we'll go straight to your parents' house to collect. They can use their old house to pay off the debt. Two men in black suits strode toward the black Cadillac. The large yellow truck followed closely behind. The two vehicles lined up and slowly drove out of the storage center's gate, accelerating until they disappeared down the distant highway. Mark lay alone on the concrete floor of the warehouse. He pressed his dusty hands tightly over his face. I turned and walked back to my Honda. I opened the driver's door and got in. Buster immediately rested his head on my lap, nuzzling gently. I started the engine, pressed the accelerator, and drove straight to the main entrance of the storage center. I stopped the car. I didn't turn off the engine. I raised my right hand and pressed hard on the horn in the center of the steering wheel. Honk! The loud horn echoed through the quiet morning. Mark's body on the concrete floor jerked violently. He scrambled out of the warehouse, one hand gripping the rusty wire mesh gate as he slowly lifted his head to look in my direction. He recognized my beat-up Honda. Using both hands to brace his knees, he stumbled and staggered across the gravel toward me. I rolled down the window. Mark scrambled to the side of my car door. He stretched out his hands, covered in black dirt and bloodstains, and clutched the edge of the window glass. His face was streaked with grime, his eyes bloodshot with dense red veins. "Sarah, it's you. It's really you, isn't it?" Mark screamed hoarsely. He thrust his head into the window. "You took my cash. That $40,000 must be with you. Give me the money now. The gang is going after my parents next week." I sat in the clean seat, watching him. My right hand rested steadily on the steering wheel. My left hand slowly pulled out the printed deposit slip showing the $40,000 amount from my trench coat pocket. I pressed the slip against the window glass, showing it to him. Mark's eyes fixed on the numbers. He lunged with his right hand, trying to snatch it through the window gap. I pulled my hand back, and the slip returned to my pocket. "This money is already in my personal independent account. It's safe now. No one can touch it," I said, looking into his eyes. My voice was steady, devoid of any emotion. "You crazy woman. You've ruined me." Mark slammed his fist against my car door. The thin metal panel dented slightly. "Mark, you are the one who emptied the house first," I said, pointing with my left hand toward the now completely empty door of warehouse number 2 behind him. Sunlight streamed inside, revealing only a few broken lead blocks and scattered paint chips on the floor. "Now your big house is gone. Your Ford pickup is gone. Your blonde lover ran off. Even the furniture you hid here is gone," I said to him, word by word. Mark's lower lip began to tremble violently. He glanced back at the empty warehouse door. "What do you want? Are you trying to drive me to my grave?" Mark closed his eyes, shouting frantically at me. I didn't answer his question. Instead, I took a thick white plastic folder from the passenger seat. Through the window gap, I tossed it directly at his feet. The folder landed on the gray gravel, picking up dirt. Inside was a printed, legally binding divorce agreement. In the space for the wife's signature, I had already signed my name in black ink. "Sign." I looked at him and said, "Once you sign, I can lend you this $40,000 to pay off your debt to the gang. Otherwise, the gang will show up at your parents' house on Monday, right on schedule. You know better than I do how loan sharks operate. They'll take every last penny of your parents' pension." Mark lowered his head, staring intently at the document pouch at his feet. His chest heaved violently, his breathing heavy and labored. Deep down, he knew he had no other options left. He was broke, his credit was maxed out, and everyone in the country thought he was insane. There was nowhere left for him to turn. I tossed a black ballpoint pen out the car window. It rolled twice on the ground, coming to a stop right beside the tip of his shoe. I reached over and pressed the window control button. The glass slowly rose, completely cutting off his cries from outside the car. I shifted into drive and released the brake. Through the rearview mirror, I watched Mark slowly crouch down, his trembling fingers reaching for the black ballpoint pen on the ground. The final step of the plan was now under my foot. I pressed the accelerator, and the Honda sped forward. I pressed the accelerator again, and the car inched forward just a bit. Suddenly, Mark stood up from the ground. He thrust his hand through the partially open window and grabbed the white plastic document pouch. With a forceful tug, he clutched it tightly in his hand. He turned and ran. He sprinted along the edge of the road, his leather shoes crunching loudly on the gravel. The hem of his Hawaiian shirt flapped wildly in the wind. He gripped the agreement tightly in his hand. He must have thought that by snatching the document, he could keep me under his control and delay the gang's debt collection. I sat in the car, watching his figure dash down the road. I placed my left hand on the steering wheel and stroked Buster's back with my right. I continued to press the accelerator, merging onto the highway. The sun rose higher and higher. Mark ran all the way to our old neighborhood in Columbus. Out of breath, he rushed to the door of the house with the foreclosure notice still hanging on it. He pulled an old key from his pocket, inserted it into the lock, and twisted the door open. He slipped inside, slamming the door shut behind him and locking it with 2 heavy deadbolts. He slid down against the door, sitting on the bare hardwood floor. The living room was completely empty. No furniture, no appliances. Even the curtains had been taken down and sold by him long ago. A few expansion screw holes for mounting a TV remained on the walls. Sunlight streamed onto the dusty floor. The house was eerily quiet. He hugged the white document pouch to his chest. Leaning against the wall, he gasped for air. With walls and a roof over his head, he felt safe. At that moment, my Honda came to a steady stop next to Mrs. Henderson's lawn next door. I pushed the car door open and stepped out. Buster followed close behind. Mrs. Henderson, wearing a floral dress, stood waiting for me in the driveway. Beside her were 2 uniformed court bailiffs, handcuffs and black walkie-talkies hanging from their belts. I walked over and shook Mrs. Henderson's hand. She handed me a document stamped with a red seal. Yesterday afternoon, I had gone to see her with the $40,000 deposit slip. She had always wanted to buy my house for her daughter. I used the money to help her pay off all the overdue tax fines on the property. With the funds, she went straight to the courthouse and purchased the house outright at auction. Now, the legal ownership of the house belonged entirely to Mrs. Henderson. The 4 of us walked together to the front door of the empty house. The foreclosure notice was still pasted on the door. One of the bailiffs stepped forward, raised his right hand, and pounded heavily on the door with his fist. Bam, bam, bam. Anyone inside, open up immediately. This is private property, the bailiff shouted. There was no sound from inside. The bailiff spoke a few words into his walkie-talkie, then pulled out a set of master keys from his belt. After 2 attempts, there was a click and the lock opened. The bailiff pushed the door open with force. Mrs. Henderson and I stood on the porch steps looking inside. Mark was sitting on the floor in the corner of the living room. He clutched the white document pouch tightly in both hands, his eyes wide with shock as the bailiffs rushed in. What are you doing? This is my house. I have the documents, Mark screamed, holding up the plastic pouch. The 2 bailiffs strode over. One of them snatched the pouch from his hands and threw it to the ground. Then, each bailiff grabbed one of Mark's arms, lifting him off the floor. Sir, you are suspected of illegally trespassing on private property. The homeowner has obtained a forcible eviction order, the bailiff said expressionlessly. Let go of me. Sarah, tell them I own half of this house. Mark's legs flailed in the air, his eyes bulging. He spotted me standing by the doorway. I watched him calmly. Mark, you emptied the house of all the furniture with your own hands yesterday. You drained our joint account completely, I said, gesturing to the barren living room. "You abandoned this home long ago." Mrs. Henderson stepped forward, holding up the property deed stamped with a red seal right in front of Mark's face. "Young man, open your eyes wide and read carefully. This house now belongs to me. Get off my floor immediately," Mrs. Henderson declared loudly. Mark froze. He stared at the name on the document. The last refuge he thought he could hide in had instantly become someone else's private property. The bailiff dragged Mark toward the door. The soles of his shoes left too long, dark streaks on the hardwood floor. They pulled him out the front door, down the steps, and shoved him onto the grassy curb by the road. Mark collapsed on the lawn. His Hawaiian shirt was torn. Dust smudged his face, and a patch of skin was scraped raw on his palm. The bailiff picked up the white document folder and handed it to me. I took it and pulled out the agreement inside, right in front of Mark. His signature at the bottom was unmistakably clear. I folded the document neatly and slipped it into my trench coat pocket. Mark lay sprawled on the grass, looking up at me. "Sarah, I don't have a single cent left." "I have nowhere to go," he said, his voice trembling as he clutched at the weeds on the ground. I turned away, picked up Buster's leash, and walked toward my car. Sunlight warmed the driveway. The Honda's engine was still faintly warm. I didn't look back. With Buster by my side, I opened the car door. He jumped into the passenger seat. I got in, closed the door, and stepped on the accelerator. The car moved smoothly along the flat road. In the rear-view mirror, the empty house grew smaller and smaller.